Welcome to Stage Explorations, where we interview the theater creatives and artists from the theater world, those who perform on stage that the audience sees, and those behind the theater stage that the audience almost never sees. I am a journalist and theater fan, Buell Brown, and today's guest is...
Hi, I'm Daniel Messé. I'm the composer and co-lyricist of Prelude to a Kiss, and if you want to learn more about Prelude to a Kiss, the musical, listen to this conversation.
So my first question, when did you fall in love with theater, and why did you have to be part of the theater world?
I grew up with a theater-loving mom, basically, who was obsessed with Broadway and show tunes, and so I have two sides to me. So I have this love of theater, and that was my first love, and then all the other types of music I got from my dad, all the folk and country and pop and rock and blues and country. But in terms of theater, and it wasn't until later in life that I was able to figure out how to combine those influences. So from the get-go, I knew I loved what I was feeling when I experienced these shows, and it just I guess I never didn't know that this was what I was going to do. I was always sure that I was going to be a songwriter. And I've just been very fortunate. When I came to New York originally, it was a very different landscape of theater. There were very few new musicals being produced on Broadway, at least. And, lots of organizations had money for workshops, but not for full production. So I wrote two full shows that got, probably a dozen workshops each, and none of them got produced. And I was like, this is crazy. I'm never going to get my stuff out there. So I started a band, and then the band took off. And then once the band had sort of established itself, the public theater was a fan of our music and asked us to do 12th night for Shakespeare in the Park. So that's what got me back into theater. And I haven't left since then.
When did your music and songwriting go from an interest to an obsession that you had to do?
It never wasn't. It was always. I don't remember any time that I wasn't making up songs or obsessing about songs in some way. It's basically what I spend my life thinking about, or singing in many cases. I love the way that music makes me feel alive, and I guess especially growing up in Michigan, which I didn't get to see many shows except for every now and then, I'd see whatever the touring company is. But I really fell in love with theater through cast albums and through movie musicals like Willy Wonka and Mary Poppins and Fantasia, all those sorts of, those are what I had access to. And that's really where I began. And it certainly has affected how I want theater to be. I want it to be mostly sung, or how I want my musicals to be, at least. I like, lots of songs. I like, because oftentimes when I would fall in love with the show and then I would see it, full later in life, and I was always so confused because this image I had in my head of how the story unfolded was often very wrong. And I don't know, for better or worse, that's sort of been my aesthetic. I really like lots of music and musicals. And I like, big melodies and genuine emotion.
Live theater, why is it such a unique format for both the actors and the audience?
It's the most collaborative art form there is. And it's collaborative in terms of the audience as well. Like, every show is different. There's no describing how many hands are in your pot, and vice versa. Like, how it's just from the performers to the director to your collaborator to the producers to the audience, there's nothing like it. There's nothing like it. That it's live, first of all, but in the process of making these shows, you have to really let go of ownership and ego as much as possible. You really have to have a humility and a confidence that you're going to cut, so you cut your favorite songs. In every show I've ever worked on, my favorite songs have been cut. And you have to just trust that you're going to write something better. And that's been the biggest evolution for me as I've grown up and felt more secure in my voice and my skin. I yeah, I'm happy to say, okay, let's try something else. And the people I work with are equally generous in that way.
I know you love musicals. Why is musical, that section of theater, so popular and have the most extreme avid fans? Why is musical so loved by everybody?
I I think it is genuinely, it's the least cynical art form. You can't go into it with this jaded or ironic stance. I mean, yes, there's irony, of course, but in terms of the actual art of theater, like I don't know anyone who isn't a real just I guess a romantic in that way. Like they believe that what we're doing is really good for the soul, and it's not important, but it's super necessary. It's like that's how I would describe it. I just love how a great musical makes me feel, and how a great song makes me feel, and why musicals actually are so effective is because when you hear a song divorced from what the drama is, like on the radio, for example, it's wonderful and it's hugely impactful, but you don't get all the character and the story and what's the problem that they're trying to overcome. And I just think that we all sort of see ourselves when we watch theater. And again, there's something about seeing a live person on stage that for me will always be more moving than a video or a film.
But being the founder and principal songwriter of the band Him, how did that help you when you were working on musicals?
So yeah, that was fascinating because first of all, just that first recording session of my first album, like that was the time that I really understood my voice as a songwriter. But like I really understood what it was I wanted to do and what I wanted people to feel when they listened. So I don't think that anyone who listens to him will think theater music necessarily, but in fact, a lot of it is theater music, and a lot of it actually was written for theater that was not then used for shows. There's a song called "Half Asleep" that I originally wrote for Amélie, and it was cut, and I love that song, and so we did it as Hem, and then it was actually restored into the show for the UK version. But they definitely cross-pollinate, the theater world and the song world, I guess I would call it. I couldn't do one without the other at this point, because after a project like this, which again is the most collaborative thing I've ever been a part of, it's so great to do a Hem album where I have a lot of control over what the final product is. And yeah, I think it's just about balance.
So when did you hear about the play Prelude to the Kiss, and why did you want to get involved with the team to make this into a musical?
The first time I heard about Prelude to a Kiss was from one of my first collaborators ever when I came to New York, a woman named Mindy Dixie, a wonderful lyricist. And she was telling me how she, like, this show is something that she'd always wanted to adapt. And I actually sought it out. Originally, I could only see the movie, but eventually I went to Lincoln Center and saw it, in the library. And it's what's magical about this piece is that it is so naturalistic, despite the magic. Like there is this real magic that takes place. But other than that kiss, it's really in many ways a very real story about real people falling in love and then trying whatever they can to safeguard that love. I can't imagine a better world to have a musical in because it's got both the authentic emotion and this magical realism that I think you kind of need just to believe that people are going to sing their thoughts. That's always the moment where, like, when the audience first hear a character go from scene to song, is such an important moment, because I know most of the time I just am like cringing inside every time it happens. It's one of the reasons why I love through song musicals. It can't work unless the story is based in reality and at the same time totally fantastical.
Just for the audience, tell us at least the beginning of Prelude to Kiss as it first starts.
It starts at a party where we have two reluctant partygoers, Rita, who lives in the building and was just, she can't sleep. She can never sleep, but especially when there's this party going on. So she sort of was wandered up to the roof where this party is. And Peter happens to be there, and who also doesn't want to be there, and he's leaving. And this mutual friend brings them together. And that's the other thing I love about Craig's writing, is that he doesn't gloss over the falling in love part. It's not just like, oh, these people fell in love and then they're in love. Like, we see them fall in love and it feels believable. Like, I'm rooting for this couple because I saw them apart, and then I saw them, put their Venn diagram together, and what they formed together is something really magical and special.
You mentioned Craig. You worked with him more than once. Why do you like working? Why do you like his writing? What is unique about him?
Well, as I mentioned, it's the way that he is able to create these worlds that are really based on our real lives, but at the same time, they are full of moments of heightened reality where it's believable that people would be singing. For me, at least, it's believable that people are singing these emotions. And I just find in all of his work, there is that combination of authentic emotion and heightened realism, or heightened experience, I guess, that is just, it's catnip for a songwriter.
Talking about songs, can you talk about a couple of the songs in the musical? I know you mentioned in an article, Age of Anxiety, that you said we really figured out the show and the magic because of that song.
Yeah, it's Love in the Age of Anxiety was definitely the moment where we really sort of figured out the tone of the show. It's the first time where I was able to really get the sort of strong melody I want without losing the descriptions that we needed it to do. Like, we need to show this world that is kind of, that's hard. It's hard to be human and be, surrounded by other humans. It's a hard road. And at the same time, it's other humans that make it worthwhile to be in this world. So how do we express that in song? And I think we captured it. It's got just the right amount of danger, but beauty most of all.
Any other song you want to mention any other ones you want to mention that you really are looking forward to the audience to hear?
Yes, there's a lot of songs that I really love in the show. We just had the Sitzprobe, which is where the actors sing for the first time with the band. And, it's for a songwriter, there's no better day than the day when you hear this thing that's been in your head all this time finally realized, sonically at least. And one of the songs that blew me away today was called Map of Us. It's a song, I would call it a Talmudic song, in that it's about the show and it's not actually furthering any specific action. You could have maybe one of them in a show without losing the audience. But for me, they really comment on what's really happening. And in this case, it's the lengths that people will go to safeguard love and to protect the love that they built with someone. And it takes place at the lowest moment for many of these characters in this particular story. And it's a triumphant song that really, I think, propels the show into its second act. It's such a choral piece too. It's, many voices a lot of the time. I just love that sound of people singing together. A group singing together. And it allows for a lot of fun to be had texturally. And so I think that anyone who comes to see this show will leave singing a song. That much I know. It is full of, very hooky songs.
What do you want the audience to get out of Prelude to the Kiss?
I want them to feel alive, basically. I want them to feel what I feel when I watch it, which is just grateful to have a heart and a voice and ears. It's just there's some things that I think, everyone has the thing that makes them feel alive. For me, it's always songs and theater and what art can do. It just the world becomes technicolor when you're living in that sort of space. And it becomes harder and harder to be able to capture that. It's such a childhood feeling. And as we get older, I think it's really easy to start sleepwalking through your life. And and I know it is for me at least. And so anything that makes me feel that alive and that connected to other people I'm going to do whatever I can to nurture that and to make it happen more.
What are you looking forward when you sit down in the audience with the rest of the theater goers and watch Prelude to the Kiss, the musical?
Again, I'm looking for magic and melody. I know it's corny to say, but it's really what it is. I love songs that feel good to sing, feel good to listen to. And it's not necessarily, it doesn't mean necessarily simple. Like I think Adam Gettle, for example, writes incredible melodies, and they're very complex. This is not that at all. This is I think anyone who likes any kind of music will find something that they like here. But ultimately, I want them to feel alive and feel how incredibly lucky we are to be here now and just to experience, a wonderful group of people, giving everything to make a connection with the audience.
Why should or must the SoCal community attend a Prelude to a Kiss, the musical?
I just think if you want to hear a good song and a good story, and if you want to remember what it feels like to be young and in love, I mean, who doesn't want to feel that? And I think we got to experience that vicariously through these characters and in this world. And yeah, I just think I think it's also important that just coming together as an audience, like coming together with other people. It's sort of what the show is about, and people are sort of living that by just gathering in any group together and sharing something that's life affirming and love affirming. And I just think I think it's just hard being human, and we should take all the joy we can. I am Daniel Messé. I'm the composer and co-lyricist of Prelude to a Kiss, the musical. You guys come and join me in connecting with this incredible show and connecting with, your audience members and the actors. I think that attending live theater is a real act of faith in this day and age. And, I just think that we're incredibly lucky to have this opportunity. And to be a part of this community is something that I'll treasure for the rest of my life. See you at the theater.
Thank you for listening or watching this podcast episode of Stage Explorations. To learn more about the theater creative and more theater creatives and artists on Stage Explorations, go to www.stageexplorations.com. Once again, that is www.stageexplorations.com. There is no space between stage and explorations. You may find more videos, podcasts, and information about this theater creative and other theater creatives and artists on Stage Explorations YouTube channel. Looking forward to seeing you in the theater.